My husband promised to pay for our daughter's college. But on enrollment day, his secret was exposed. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together, we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I never thought I'd be writing this. Even now, 3 months later, my hands still shake when I think about that day. But I need to tell this story. I need to get it out of my head and onto paper, because maybe then I can finally start to process what happened to us, what my husband did to our daughter, what he did to me. My name is Sarah, I'm 43 years old, and I've spent the last 18 years of my life dedicated to one purpose: giving my daughter the future I never had. Emma was born on a freezing January morning, 3 weeks early, and screaming her lungs out from the moment she entered the world. I remember holding her for the first time, this tiny, perfect creature with her father's dark hair and my stubborn chin, and making her a silent promise. I would give her everything, every opportunity, every chance, every advantage I could possibly provide. I didn't go to college. My family couldn't afford it, and back then, I didn't think it mattered much. I got a job as a receptionist right out of high school, worked my way up to office manager, and thought I was doing fine. It wasn't until years later, watching colleagues with degrees get promoted past me, seeing the opportunities I'd missed, that I understood what I'd given up. I swore my daughter would never face those limitations. Emma was special from the beginning. I know every parent thinks their child is gifted, but Emma truly was. She taught herself to read at 4 years old, sitting in the corner of the living room with picture books, sounding out words while I made dinner. By first grade, she was reading chapter books meant for fifth graders. Her teachers always said the same thing: Emma has tremendous potential. My husband Mark and I used to joke that she got her brains from my side of the family, though he'd always add that she got her determination from him. Mark worked in sales insurance, specifically, and he was good at it. Charismatic, confident, the kind of guy who could sell ice to someone in the Arctic. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We owned a modest house in the suburbs, took family vacations to the beach every summer, had enough to give Emma a good childhood. But more than that, we had a plan: the college fund. I remember the conversation like it was yesterday. Emma was 7, sitting at the kitchen table, working on her homework with that intense concentration she always had, tongue peeking out between her teeth. Mark came home from work and found me going through our finances, calculating how much we'd need to save each month. "What are you doing?" he asked, loosening his tie and heading to the fridge for a beer. "Trying to figure out college costs," I said, showing him the printouts I'd made. "If we start saving now, we'll have enough by the time she's 18. Mark pulled up a chair beside me, glanced at the numbers, and shook his head. "Don't worry about it." "What do you mean, don't worry about it?" "Mark, college is expensive. Even state schools cost." I said, "Don't worry." He put his hand over mine, gave me that confident smile that had made me fall in love with him 20 years ago. "I've got this handled. I'm setting up a separate account, putting money away every month. By the time Emma's ready for college, we'll have plenty, I promise." I should have asked more questions. I should have demanded to see statements, to be involved in the planning. But I trusted him. Mark was my husband, the father of my child, my partner. Why wouldn't I trust him? So I let him handle it. And I was grateful. I thanked him constantly for being so responsible, for thinking ahead, for taking care of our family's future. He'd wave it off, tell me it was his job as a father, that Emma deserved the best. The years passed. Emma continued to excel. In middle school, she joined the debate team and won regional championships. She spent hours researching, practicing her arguments in front of the bathroom mirror, staying up late to refine her opening statements. I'd find her at midnight, hunched over her laptop, eyes red from staring at the screen. "Honey, you need to sleep," I'd say, putting a hand on her shoulder. Just one more source, Mom. I need to make sure my argument is airtight. She was relentless, driven. Everything I'd hoped she'd be and more. In high school, she took every advanced placement class offered. Physics, calculus, literature, history. She devoured them all. Her bedroom walls were covered with charts and formulas and timeline posters. She joined Model UN, became president of the Honor Society, volunteered at the local library teaching reading to elementary school kids, and she had dreams. Oh, she had such dreams. I want to be a biomedical engineer, she told us at dinner one night during her sophomore year. She was 15, wearing her debate team hoodie, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. I want to develop prosthetics, help people who've lost limbs. There's this program at Stanford, Mom. It's incredible. They're doing groundbreaking work with neural interfaces. Stanford. My heart had stopped for a moment at the word. Stanford was one of the most prestigious universities in the country, with tuition to match. But I looked at Mark, and he just smiled. Then that's where you'll go, he said simply. If you get in, we'll make it work. I've been saving for this your whole life. Emma's face lit up. She jumped out of her chair and hugged him, and I saw tears in her eyes. Thank you, Daddy. Thank you so much. I'm going to work so hard, I promise. I'm going to make you so proud. You already make me proud, sweetheart. I watched them together, my husband and my daughter, and felt such overwhelming love and gratitude. We were lucky. We were so lucky. Mark was providing for our family, securing our daughter's future, being the father every child deserved. I should have known it was too good to be true. Emma's junior year was intense. She studied constantly, took the SAT 3 times to improve her score, worked with a tutor for her AP exams. She barely slept, barely ate, pushing herself to the absolute limit. I worried about her, but she insisted she was fine. Mom, I can rest after college applications are done, she'd say, downing another cup of coffee at 10 p.m. Right now, I need to focus. She applied to 12 schools that fall of her senior year. Stanford was her dream, but she also applied to MIT, Berkeley, Cornell, USC, and several others. We spent weeks on those applications, refining essays, checking and rechecking every detail. I'd never seen her so nervous, so hopeful, so terrified all at once. The waiting was agonizing. Months of checking the mailbox, refreshing email, jumping every time her phone buzzed. I held her hand through every rejection, celebrated every acceptance. By April, she'd gotten into 7 schools, waitlisted at 3, and rejected from 2. But Stanford accepted her. I'll never forget the moment she found out. It was a Tuesday afternoon in late March. She'd come home from school and immediately went to check her email, something she'd been doing obsessively for weeks. I was in the kitchen making dinner when I heard her scream. I ran into the living room, heart pounding, thinking something terrible had happened. But Emma was standing in front of her laptop, hands over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. I got in, she whispered. Mom, I got in. Stanford accepted me. I started crying too. I grabbed her and held her tight, both of us sobbing and laughing and shaking. This was it. This was everything we'd worked for, everything I'd promised her when she was a tiny baby in my arms. She was going to Stanford. She was going to have the future she deserved. Mark came home an hour later to find us still crying. We told him the news, and he picked Emma up and spun her around like she was 5 years old again. That's my girl, he shouted. That's my brilliant girl. I knew you could do it. We went out to dinner to celebrate, to Emma's favorite restaurant, an upscale Italian place we usually only visited on special occasions. Mark ordered champagne technically illegal for Emma, but the waiter looked the other way, and we toasted to her future. To Emma, Mark said, raising his glass. The smartest, hardest-working person I know. Stanford doesn't know how lucky they are to have you. To Stanford, Emma replied, grinning so wide I thought her face might crack. And to you guys, for making this possible. I couldn't have done any of this without your support. I looked at Mark across the table, candlelight reflecting in his eyes, and felt such overwhelming gratitude. He'd kept his promise. For 11 years, he'd been quietly saving, preparing for this moment. Our daughter was going to Stanford, and we could afford it because my husband had planned ahead. That night, after Emma went to bed, Mark and I sat on the back porch with glasses of wine, looking up at the stars. "We did it," I said softly. "She's going to have everything." "We did," Mark agreed. He was quiet for a moment, then added, "I'm so proud of her, of you, of us." Something in his voice made me turn to look at him. He was staring at his wineglass, not meeting my eyes, and there was a tension in his jaw I didn't understand. "Are you okay?" I asked. Yeah, I'm fine." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just thinking about how fast she grew up. Feels like yesterday she was learning to walk, and now she's going to Stanford." I chalked it up to parental sentimentality, the bittersweet feeling of watching your child prepare to leave home. I put my head on his shoulder, and we sat there in comfortable silence. Two parents who'd successfully launched their daughter toward a brilliant future. I didn't know I was sitting next to a liar. The summer passed too quickly. Emma worked a part-time job at a coffee shop to save money for textbooks and expenses. She bought dorm supplies, connected with her future roommate on social media, attended orientation virtually. She was so excited, so ready, counting down the days until she'd leave for Palo Alto. Stanford's enrollment day was August 15th. Move-in was a whole production. We'd drive down together, spend a few days helping her settle in, meet other parents and students, attend welcoming events. I'd been planning it for months, making lists, buying things we'd need, trying not to cry every time I thought about how empty the house would feel without her. The financial deadline was July 30th. We needed to pay the first semester's tuition, fees, room and board, a total of just over $38,000. A staggering amount, but Mark had assured me repeatedly that we had it covered. "The account has plenty," he'd said when I'd asked about it in June. "More than enough for all 4 years, actually. I told you, I've been preparing for this." On July 28th, 2 days before the deadline, I brought it up again at breakfast. "So we need to transfer the money to Stanford by Friday," I said, checking the university's payment portal on my laptop. "Should we do it together? I can help you with the paperwork if you want." Mark froze, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. The pause was barely noticeable, maybe half a second, but I caught it. "I'll handle it," he said. "I'll do it from work tomorrow. Easier that way since the account is connected to my work email." "Why would the college fund be connected to your work email?" I asked, confused. "It's not. The account notifications go there." "Never mind, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it tomorrow." I felt a flutter of unease, but pushed it down. Mark always handled the college fund. This was his responsibility, his promise. I needed to trust him. July 30th came and went. On July 31st, I checked the Stanford portal and saw that our payment was still pending. "Mark, did you transfer the money?" "Yeah, I did it yesterday. Must take a few days to process." "Are you sure? It says pending, not processing." "Sarah." His voice was sharp, irritated in a way that made me take a step back. "I said I handled it. Stop worrying." I didn't bring it up again, but the unease grew. On August 3rd, I received an email from Stanford's billing office. "Your payment is overdue. Please remit payment immediately to avoid cancellation of enrollment." My stomach dropped. I called Mark immediately. "They're saying the payment is overdue." "That's impossible. I sent it." "Then why are they saying they haven't received it?" "I don't know, Sarah. Maybe it's an error on their end. I'll call them and sort it out." "Can you just show me the transfer confirmation? That way we can prove—" "I'm at work. I can't deal with this right now. I'll handle it tonight." He hung up. I sat there staring at my phone, that flutter of unease, now a full-blown knot in my stomach. That night, Mark came home late. Emma was in her room, and I was waiting in the kitchen, the Stanford email pulled up on my laptop. "Did you call them?" I asked. Yes, it's sorted out. Just a system error. They sent me 2 more emails today. They're threatening to cancel her enrollment if we don't pay by August 10th. I said it's sorted out! His voice was loud, aggressive, and I flinched. Mark rarely raised his voice at me. Mark, what's going on? Nothing is going on. You need to stop nagging me about this. I'm not nagging. I'm concerned. Our daughter's college enrollment is at stake. And I told you I have it under control. He stormed out of the kitchen, and I heard the bedroom door slam. I sat there, hands shaking, wondering what the hell had just happened. The next day, I did something I'd never done before. I went through Mark's office. He had a small room in the house he used for work, keeping client files and financial documents. I'd always respected his privacy, never went in there without permission. But something was very wrong, and I needed to know what. I found his filing cabinet unlocked. Inside were folders labeled with various investment accounts, insurance policies, tax returns. I searched for anything labeled college fund, or Emma's education, or even just a savings account number. Nothing. I went through every single folder. There was no college fund. My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the papers. This had to be a mistake. Maybe he kept it somewhere else. Maybe it was digital. Maybe... I turned on his computer. Mark wasn't great with passwords. He used the same one for everything. I felt sick doing this, violating his privacy. But I had to know. I checked his email, searched for Stanford, college fund, savings, any related terms. What I found instead made the room spin. Emails from an online casino, dozens of them, hundreds. Notifications about deposits, withdrawals, promotional offers. I clicked on one and found myself staring at an account summary. Mark had an account at 3 different online gambling sites. According to the emails, he'd been gambling for 5 years. The amounts were staggering, thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands, flowing in and out of these accounts. I kept digging, my heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. Bank statements showed transfers to these gambling sites, money being drained from our accounts steadily over the years. He'd opened credit cards I didn't know about, maxed them out, taken out a second mortgage on our house, and there was no college fund. There had never been a college fund. For 11 years, every time Mark said he was putting money away for Emma's education, he'd been lying. Every promise, every reassurance, every time I'd thanked him for being so responsible, all lies. The money hadn't been saved. It had been gambled away. I don't remember much of what happened next. I think I cried. I might have screamed. I know I called my sister, sobbing so hard she couldn't understand me. She lived 3 hours away, but she got in her car immediately and started driving. When Mark came home that evening, I was waiting for him at the kitchen table, printouts of bank statements and gambling site emails spread out in front of me. He walked in, saw my face, saw the papers, and stopped dead. Sarah, there is no college fund. I can explain. There is no college fund. I was screaming now, all the pain and betrayal and rage pouring out of me. You've been lying to me for 11 years. You've been gambling away our money while I thanked you for saving for our daughter's future. It's not that simple. Then explain it to me. Explain how you could look our daughter in the eye and promise her Stanford when you knew we couldn't pay for it. Explain how you could watch her work herself to exhaustion, sacrifice her entire childhood for this dream, while you were pissing away every cent we had. I was going to win it back. His face was red, veins bulging in his neck. I had a system. I was so close. I just needed a few more. A system? A system? I laughed, a horrible, bitter sound. You gambled away our daughter's education because you had a system? You don't understand the pressure I've been under. Work has been hell. Quotas are impossible. I needed something to help me relax. So you destroyed your family instead? Emma's voice came from the doorway, small and broken. Dad. We both turned. She was standing there in her pajamas, face pale, eyes wide with horror. How much had she heard? "Sweetheart." Mark started toward her, but she backed away. "Is it true?" Her voice was shaking. "There's no money for college?" The silence that followed was deafening. "Is it true?" she screamed. "Emma, honey, we'll figure something out," Mark said, his voice cracking. "Student loans, scholarships, You promised." Tears were streaming down her face. "You promised me my whole life. Every time I stayed up late studying, every time I gave up hanging out with friends to work on applications, you said it would be worth it because you were saving for college. You promised. I'm sorry." "Sorry?" She was sobbing now, huge gasping sobs that shook her whole body. "I got into Stanford. I worked for 12 years for this. And you gambled it away? Emma, please. Get away from me." She ran to her room, and I heard the door slam, heard her crying through the walls. I looked at my husband, this man I'd spent 20 years of my life with, and I didn't recognize him. He was a stranger, a liar, a man who destroyed his daughter's dreams to feed an addiction. "Get out," I said quietly. "Sarah, we need to talk about this. Get out of my house. Now. This is my house, too. You mortgaged it without telling me. You took out credit cards in both our names. You committed financial fraud. So unless you want me to call the police right now and have you arrested, you'll get the hell out of my house." He stared at me for a long moment, then grabbed his keys and left. I heard his car start, heard him drive away, and then I collapsed onto the kitchen floor and cried. My sister arrived around midnight and found me still sitting there, surrounded by the evidence of my husband's betrayal. She held me while I cried, then helped me up and made me drink water and told me everything would be okay. But it wasn't okay. How could it ever be okay? The next week was a nightmare. I barely slept, barely ate. Emma locked herself in her room and refused to talk to anyone. Mark was staying at a motel, calling and texting constantly, begging me to let him explain, to give him another chance. I contacted Stanford and explained the situation, asked if there was any possibility of financial aid or an extension. The financial aid officer was sympathetic, but firm Emma's application hadn't included a request for aid because we'd indicated we could pay full tuition. At this late date, there was no aid available. Without payment, her enrollment would be canceled. I looked into student loans, but the amounts were staggering, and without Mark's income, I'd already decided on divorce. I couldn't qualify for enough to cover Stanford's costs. I called every scholarship organization I could find, but most deadlines had passed months ago. I was failing my daughter. After 18 years of promises, of sacrifices, of dreams, I was failing her. On August 12th, 3 days before move-in day, I sat Emma down. "Honey, we need to talk about options." She looked at me with empty eyes. She'd lost weight, dark circles under her eyes from crying and not sleeping. My brilliant, vibrant daughter looked hollow. "There are state schools that are still accepting applications," I continued, hating every word. "UC schools, Cal State. They're excellent schools, and the tuition is much more manageable. We could take out loans. I could pick up extra work. It's not Stanford. I know, baby, and I'm so sorry. I worked my entire life for Stanford." Her voice was flat, emotionless, which somehow hurt worse than if she'd been screaming. "I gave up everything. I didn't go to parties, didn't date, didn't do anything normal teenagers do because I was focused on getting into Stanford, and now I'm supposed to just give it up because Dad's a gambling addict?" "Emma, why didn't you check? Why didn't you ever ask to see the account statements? Why did you just trust him?" The question hit me like a physical blow, because she was right. I had trusted him blindly, never verified, never questioned. I'd been so grateful to not have to worry about it that I'd never done my due diligence. "I don't have a good answer," I said quietly. "I trusted your father. I shouldn't have, but I did. And I'm so sorry that my trust cost you your dream." She started crying again, and I reached for her, but she pulled away. "I need to be alone." She went to her room, and I sat there feeling like the world's worst mother. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through scenarios in my head. None of them worked. We couldn't afford Stanford. We could barely afford state school with the debt Mark had accumulated. Emma's dream was dead, and it was my fault for not protecting it. Around 3 a.m., I got up and went to Emma's room. The door was cracked open, and I could see her sitting at her desk, laptop open, the glow illuminating her tear-stained face. "Emma, honey, you should be sleeping." "I'm withdrawing my Stanford enrollment," she said without looking at me. "And I'm applying to community college." My heart stopped. "What?" "Community college is cheap. I can work full-time and pay for it myself, then maybe transfer to a UC in 2 years if I save enough." "Emma, no. You worked too hard for this. Community college is fine for some people, but you earned Stanford." "But we can't afford Stanford." She spun around in her chair, and the anguish in her eyes nearly destroyed me. "And I'm not going to saddle you with hundreds of thousands in debt because of Dad's mistakes. So I'm going to community college, and I'm going to make the best of it. And maybe someday I'll get to do what I dreamed of doing, but not now." "This isn't fair to you." "None of this is fair, but it's reality." I wanted to argue, to tell her we'd find a way, to promise her everything would work out. But I couldn't lie to her, not after what Mark had done. I couldn't make promises I couldn't keep. The next morning, I called Stanford and formally withdrew Emma's enrollment. The woman on the phone offered condolences, said Emma could reapply next year if our circumstances changed. I thanked her and hung up, then went to the bathroom and threw up. Mark showed up that afternoon. I'd been avoiding his calls, but he came to the house, using his key before I could change the locks. Emma was at work, so it was just the two of us. "I need you to hear me out," he said before I could tell him to leave. "There's nothing to hear." "I'm sick, Sarah. Gambling addiction is a disease, and I'm sick. But I'm getting help. I found a therapist who specializes in addiction. I'm joining Gamblers Anonymous. I'm doing everything." "You're 18 years too late." "I know I messed up. You destroyed our daughter's future. You lied to me for over a decade. You put us in massive debt. This isn't messing up, Mark. This is devastation. I can make this right. I'll work extra hours, I'll sell the car, I'll do whatever it takes." "To do what?" "Stanford withdrew her enrollment. That opportunity is gone. You can't make this right." He sank onto the couch, head in his hands. "I'm so sorry. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. It started small, just a little bit here and there, and then I was in too deep, and I couldn't stop. I kept thinking I'd win big and pay it all back, and no one would ever have to know." "But you didn't win big. You lost everything. And now Emma is starting community college instead of Stanford, and she looks at both of us like we betrayed her." "Both of you?" "She blames me for trusting you, and she's right. I should have verified. I should have asked questions. I was so focused on being grateful for your responsibility that I never actually checked if you were being responsible." Mark looked up at me, and I saw that he'd been crying. Good. He should cry. He should feel every ounce of the pain he'd caused. "What do we do now?" he asked. "I'm filing for divorce. I'm taking the house. What's left of the equity anyway. You're going to pay child support, and you're going to get help for your addiction. And maybe someday Emma will be able to forgive you. But I won't." "Sarah, you need to leave, and Mark, don't come back unless Emma asks for you." He left. I changed the locks that afternoon. The following week, Emma started classes at the local community college. I drove her on the first day, watched her walk across campus with her backpack and laptop, looking small and defeated. This should have been Stanford. This should have been the triumphant beginning of her brilliant future. Instead, it was Plan Z, the fallback of last resort. She came home that evening and went straight to her room without a word. I made dinner, knocked on her door, got no response. I left a plate outside her room and went to bed feeling like I'd failed at the most important job I'd ever had. This went on for weeks. Emma went to classes, came home, did her work in silence. She quit her coffee shop job and got a position as a tutor, making more money. She was saving, she told me. Saving for a transfer application, for the dream she hadn't quite given up on. Mark completed 30 days of gambling addiction treatment and called to tell me about it. I hung up. He sent letters to Emma, long apologetic screeds explaining his addiction, his remorse, his love for her. She threw them away without reading them. 2 months after the Stanford disaster, Emma came home from school and found me in the kitchen. I was going through bills, trying to figure out how to pay for the debt Mark had left us with. Insurance, credit cards, the second mortgage. It was crushing. "Mom?" Her voice was hesitant, uncertain in a way Emma never was. "Yeah, honey?" "I've been thinking about taking a gap year, working full-time, saving money, maybe reapplying to Stanford for next fall." My heart broke all over again. "Emma, you don't have to." "I want to. I'm not ready to give up on this dream. I can't. It's what I've worked for my whole life." I looked at my daughter, 18 years old, and already learning about disappointment and perseverance and broken promises. She was stronger than I'd ever been. "Okay," I said. "If that's what you want to do, we'll make it work. But Emma, I need you to know something." "What?" "This isn't your responsibility. You shouldn't have to work yourself to death to afford college because your father gambled away your fund. You shouldn't have to give up your dream or delay it or compromise. This is so unfair to you, and I will never forgive myself for not protecting you from it." She was quiet for a moment, then crossed the kitchen and hugged me. It was the first time she'd hugged me since that awful night in August. "I know, Mom," she whispered. "I know it's not fair, but life isn't fair. I learned that this year, and I can either give up and be bitter, or I can keep fighting for what I want. So I'm choosing to fight." I held her tight and cried into her shoulder, grateful beyond words that she was so much stronger than her parents. Emma took that gap year. She worked 40 hours a week as a tutor, saved every penny she could. I picked up freelance work on top of my regular job, adding to her college fund, the real college fund this time, in an account only I controlled. We ate cheap meals, cut every corner, sacrificed everything for this goal. Mark completed his treatment program and started attending GA meetings regularly. He got a second job, sent me every extra dollar he made to contribute to Emma's fund. It wasn't enough to make up for what he'd done, but it was something. Emma reapplied to Stanford that December. She also applied to 10 other schools, most of them with generous financial aid programs. She wrote her personal essay about resilience, about having her dreams destroyed and choosing to rebuild them anyway. It was beautiful and heartbreaking and honest. In March, she got her acceptance letter. Stanford had accepted her again, and this time, after reviewing our financial situation, they'd offered a significant financial aid package. We'd still need loans, but manageable ones. Achievable ones. Emma cried when she read the letter. I cried. Even Mark cried when she called to tell him. She was going to Stanford after all, just 1 year delayed. Move-in day was August 15th again, exactly 1 year after the original. We drove down to Palo Alto together. Emma, me, and my sister, who'd insisted on coming for moral support. Mark wasn't invited. As we helped Emma unpack in her dorm room, hanging posters and making her bed and stocking her mini fridge, I felt a complex mix of emotions. Pride that she'd fought so hard for this. Grief for the years she'd lost. Anger at Mark for stealing it from her in the first place. But mostly, overwhelming love for this incredible young woman who'd refused to let betrayal destroy her dreams. That evening, after we'd said our goodbyes, and I'd cried enough tears to fill an ocean, Emma walked us to the car. "Mom," she said as I was about to get in the driver's seat. "Yeah?" "Thank you for fighting for this with me, for not giving up when it would have been easier to just accept community college, for believing I deserved this even when it seemed impossible. You've always deserved this, honey, every bit of it. I know Dad messed up, really badly. But you didn't give up on me, and that's what I'll remember most about this whole awful situation. I hugged her one more time, breathing in the scent of her shampoo, memorizing the feeling of holding my daughter before she started this new chapter. I love you, I whispered. Go be brilliant. I love you too, Mom. I drove away from Stanford that night with my sister beside me, watching Emma's dorm building disappear in the rearview mirror. My daughter was where she belonged, where she'd always belonged. It had taken an extra year, had cost us more than just money, had broken and rebuilt our family in ways I'm still processing. But she made it. We made it. Mark calls sometimes now. Emma talks to him occasionally, though their relationship is strained and probably always will be. He's been sober. Is that the right word for gambling? For over a year now. He's in therapy, paying his support, trying to rebuild the trust he destroyed. I don't know if Emma will ever fully forgive him. I know I haven't. Every time I think about that August night, the look on her face when she realized her father had gambled away her future, I feel rage so intense it takes my breath away. But Emma is at Stanford now. She's studying biomedical engineering, getting straight A's, already working in a research lab. She's brilliant and driven, and everything I always knew she'd be. And me? I'm rebuilding, filing for divorce, paying down debt, learning to trust again, or at least learning to verify. I check account statements now. I ask questions. I never take promises at face value anymore. My husband promised to pay for our daughter's college, but on enrollment day, his secret was exposed. He'd gambled it all away, lied for over a decade, destroyed the trust and security our family was built on. But the story doesn't end there. Emma fought back. We fought back together. And we won. Not the way we expected, not the way it should have been, but we won anyway. That's what I want people to understand. Betrayal doesn't have to be the end of your story. It can be just the beginning of a different one, harder, more painful, but ultimately more honest, more real. Emma is at Stanford because she refused to give up. Because I refused to let her give up. Because even in the wreckage of broken promises and shattered trust, we found a way forward. I don't know if that counts as a happy ending. Some days I don't think it does. Some days I wake up angry all over again, thinking about what Mark stole from us. Not just money, but time, trust, the joy that should have come with Emma's achievement. But other days, I look at who Emma has become through this trial, and I think maybe we gained something too. Not that the pain was worth it, I'd never say that. But Emma learned early that life can be devastatingly unfair, that the people you trust most can fail you, and that you can survive it anyway. She learned she's strong enough to rebuild when everything falls apart. Those are harsh lessons for an 18-year-old to learn. I wish she'd never had to learn them. But she did, and she came out the other side still dreaming, still fighting, still believing in herself. That's more than I managed at her age. Hell, that's more than I managed at 43. Last week, Emma called me from campus. She sounded exhausted but excited, talking a mile a minute about her biomechanical engineering project, about a professor who wants her to join his research team, about possibilities and opportunities, and the future she's building. "Mom," she said, her voice suddenly serious, "I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. Those words still trigger panic in me. "What is it?" "I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about Dad, about the money, about everything, and I realized something." I held my breath, waiting. I spent so long being angry. At Dad for lying, at you for not checking, at myself for not somehow knowing. And that anger was eating me alive. It was destroying my first semester at Stanford because I couldn't stop thinking about how it should have been different. "Emma, let me finish." I talked to a counselor here, and she helped me understand that holding on to that anger wasn't protecting me. It was just poisoning me. So I'm choosing to let it go. Not forget, I'll never forget. But I'm not going to let Dad's mistakes define my entire life. Tears were streaming down my face. "That's very mature of you, honey." "I'm not saying I forgive him completely. I don't know if I ever will. but I'm forgiving enough to move forward. And Mom, I forgive you too, for trusting him, for not checking. You were being a good wife, a trusting partner. That's not a flaw. What he did was the flaw. I couldn't speak. I just sobbed into the phone while my daughter, my brilliant, compassionate daughter, gave me the absolution I didn't know I needed. I love you, Mom. Thank you for never giving up on getting me here. I love you too, baby, so much. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet house for a long time, thinking about forgiveness and second chances, and the long road of healing ahead of us. Mark still sends child support, still goes to his meetings, still tries to rebuild. Emma talks to him on holidays now, brief stilted conversations that are more than he deserves, but more than I expected she'd give. I don't know if their relationship will ever be truly repaired. That's for Emma to decide. As for Mark and me, the divorce will be final next month. 20 years of marriage dissolved because of lies and gambling and broken promises. Sometimes I mourn the marriage I thought I had, the partnership, the trust, the life we built together. Then I remember it was built on sand, and I stop mourning. I'm learning to be alone. It's harder than I expected, but also freeing in ways I didn't anticipate. I make decisions without consulting anyone. I manage money with complete transparency. I can see every dollar, control every account, trust that what I think we have is actually what we have. It's terrifying and empowering in equal measure. I started seeing a therapist too. Turns out living with a liar for 11 years does some damage to your ability to trust, to your sense of reality, to your self-worth. I'm working through it, slowly. Some days are better than others. But here's what I know for certain. Emma is at Stanford. She's thriving. She's going to change the world with her brilliant mind and her compassionate heart. And nothing Mark did, no amount of money he gambled away, no lies he told, could ultimately stop her from getting there. It took longer. It cost more financially, emotionally, in every way. It scarred all of us. But she made it. Last month, I drove down to visit her for Parents' Weekend. She gave me a tour of campus, introduced me to her friends, showed me the lab where she's working on neural interface research. She was radiant, confident, exactly where she belonged. We had lunch at a cafe on campus, and she told me about her plans graduate school, maybe a PhD, working in prosthetics research to help wounded veterans and accident victims. The same dreams she'd had at 15. Undimmed by everything that happened. You know what's funny? She said, stealing a fry off my plate. If Dad had told us the truth from the beginning, if he'd said he couldn't save for college and we'd needed to plan differently, I probably still would have ended up here. Maybe with more loans, maybe working more hours, but I would have made it work. The betrayal wasn't that there was no money, it was the years of lies, the false security, the broken promise. She was right. If Mark had been honest, we could have adjusted, planned accordingly, applied for financial aid from the start. Emma would have worked harder, saved more, but she's never been afraid of hard work. We would have figured it out together. Instead, his lies stole a year of her life and nearly destroyed our family. Do you ever regret it? I asked, taking the gap year, having to fight so hard for this? Emma considered the question, gazing out at the Stanford campus, the sandstone buildings, the palm trees, the students rushing between classes. No, she said finally. I mean, I wish it hadn't happened the way it did. I wish Dad had been who we thought he was. But that year taught me something important. It taught me that I'm capable of fighting for myself, that I don't need someone else to save me or provide for me. I can do it myself. You shouldn't have had to. No, I shouldn't have. But I did, and I survived it. That means something. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You're incredible, you know that? She grinned, that same mischievous grin she'd had since she was 5 years old. I learned from the best. We spent the rest of the weekend together, and for the first time since that awful August night, I felt something close to peace. Not happiness exactly. The wounds were still too fresh for that. But peace, acceptance, hope. This wasn't the story I wanted to tell. I wanted to write about a family who worked together, who saved and planned and succeeded. About a husband who kept his promises and a daughter who got everything she deserved without having to fight for it. But that's not the story I got. Instead, I got betrayal and lies and devastating disappointment. I got a year of community college when it should have been Stanford. I got debt and divorce and broken trust. And I also got a daughter who refused to let someone else's failures define her future, who took the worst thing that had ever happened to her and used it as fuel to fight harder, who learned at 18 that she was strong enough to rebuild her dreams when someone else tried to destroy them. Maybe that's worth something too. I don't have advice for people going through something similar. I don't have wisdom or insight or a neat lesson wrapped up in a bow. All I have is my story, messy and painful and unresolved in so many ways. But I do know this. If someone you trust betrays you, if they destroy something precious and irreplaceable, you have a choice. You can let that betrayal define you, limit you, destroy you. Or you can acknowledge the pain, mourn what you lost, and then fight like hell to build something new. Emma chose to fight, and watching her refuse to give up taught me that I could fight too. My husband promised to pay for our daughter's college, but on enrollment day, his secret was exposed. He'd gambled away her future, lied for over a decade, nearly destroyed her dreams. But he didn't succeed. Because Emma was stronger than his lies, and together we were stronger than his betrayal. She's at Stanford now, not because of him, but in spite of him. Not because the path was easy, but because she refused to let anyone, even her father, steal her future. And that, I think, is the real story. Not the betrayal, but the survival. Not the broken promise, but the refusal to break with it. Emma is going to be a biomedical engineer. She's going to help people, change lives, make the world better. And when she does, it won't be because her father kept his promise. It'll be because she kept hers, the promise she made to herself that she was worth fighting for. I just wish I'd taught her that lesson a different way. Without the pain, without the loss, without learning at 18 that the people who are supposed to protect you can be the ones who hurt you most. But we don't get to choose how we learn our most important lessons. We only get to choose what we do with them. Emma chose to keep dreaming. I chose to keep fighting for her dreams. And Mark? Mark chose to finally get help, though it came far too late to save what he'd destroyed. 3 different choices, 3 different paths forward. All of us trying to survive the wreckage of his lies in our own way. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Emma will ever fully trust again, if our family will ever feel whole, if Mark will stay sober or fall back into old patterns. I don't know if I'll ever stop checking bank statements obsessively, or if I'll ever be able to take someone at their word again. But I know Emma is at Stanford. And for now, tonight, that's enough. The rest, we'll figure out as we go. Together or apart, healed or healing, we'll keep moving forward. Because that's what survivors do. That's what my daughter taught me. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure she knows that even though her father failed her, even though I failed her by not catching his lies sooner, she never failed herself. Not for a single moment. She fought for her dreams, and her dreams won. That's the ending I choose to focus on. Not the betrayal, not the lies, not the loss. Just this. Emma is at Stanford, studying biomedical engineering, building the future she always deserved. And nothing, not gambling, not lies, not broken promises, could ultimately stop her from getting there. That's my daughter. That's my story. And despite everything, I'm grateful I get to tell it.